Welcome to Postpartum Unfiltered.
The podcast where we get real about what happens during the postpartum period.
I am Jillian,
And I'm Sarah.
and we are two doctor moms who are not prepared for what postpartum would bring.
By sharing your stories, we hope to spread awareness and allow other families to be more prepared for the time after birth.
Hello and welcome back to Postpartum Unfiltered. You're here with Jillian and Sara, and today Sara and I are going to have a little chat. We're going to talk back and forth about some postpartum issues, and today we are going to focus on breastfeeding and formula use.
Which I think is a really good topic because I think we all kind of go through different journeys, but we never actually sit together and discuss our journey from start to finish postpartum. And I think if we did that, that'd be great for other women that are currently in this situation. So I think it's a great topic for us to discuss.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people have overlapping experiences, right? And not
Right.
every, even across multiple children, you might not have the same experience with formula or breast milk and breastfeeding and just all that goes into that as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. Which one thing is really cool, I didn't know, side note, is that when you're done breastfeeding or and kind of end that journey, there's actually places that make jewelry of it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people. Actually, somebody recently told me that their spouse got that for them, I think for their birthday or something, and they got like a kit and they can do it at home. But I think,
What?
yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
mean, sounds like a very Etsy thing to me.
Totally an Etsy thing.
Yeah, like it's
But
not.
side note, what an amazing spouse, 'cause my husband probably doesn't even know that exists at all.
Oh no, I'm sure mine doesn't. He didn't. No, I told him what a push present was after we had my first son, which to be fair, I had never heard of it when I had my first child. Um, but then I was telling him oh yeah, they do these things called push presents, and he likes to joke like, oh, you got a push present, but it doesn't really count because it's not a real thing. Like,
When I told my husband, he goes, "You're just making up stuff now." Because I told him you have to go on a baby moon and then you have to do a push present. He's like, "You're just making up stuff." And I'm like,
yeah,
"Actually, I'm not."
I'm actually making a human, but what have you done lately?
Exactly. And everything afterwards doesn't
Right,
have,
like breast milk.
yeah, like breast milk,
Or
sir, which
I've,
your
I've
nips don't provide
Yeah.
anything.
Have you
So
ever created the life force for another human? I don't think so. So good day to you, sir.
yours are just decoration,
Where's
husband.
my gift?
No gift
Um,
big enough. Yeah. So how
yeah,
was your journey? What kind of were you mostly exclusively breastfeeding, or you
it
did breastfeeding
was
and pumping or some formula?
terrible. I really
Oh,
wanted to breastfeed. And I think I kind of went into it like a lot of people do the first time. I felt very like, oh, it's a natural process and it may have some hiccups, but of course we'll figure it out and navigate it because that's how it's supposed to be. I had this goal to breastfeed for a year and then see how it goes, which I think about now and I'm like, what an idiot. But
that just shows how much we know about everything.
yeah, well, and yeah, it's you you do think it's this natural process. People have been doing it forever. That's how
Right.
we've all survived, and all mammals do it or whatever. But um, it did not come naturally to me at all. And with my first son in the hospital, he wouldn't. They they got mad at me after our first hour of skin on skin time, and they came back and they asked if he ate, and I said no, he's been asleep this whole time. And they said you have to feed him, and I said I tried, and he's not interested. And and
It's
that's
been an hour, ma'am.
yeah, his whole first 24 hours, he slept almost the whole time and he didn't eat, he didn't do anything really. He slept almost the entire time. And then I tried to nurse him, and the lactation consultant came and she said oh, he's latching, he's getting it. You can tell by the way he's moving his mouth and suckling that he's getting some and he's swallowing. So he's getting it out and he's swallowing it. So that's how you know he's eating. And I kept telling her nothing feels different to me. My breasts don't feel different. I just imagine that I could feel it
Right.
leaving my body, like that, I'd feel a flow or something. And I kept telling her nothing feels different. I don't think he's getting anything. And then the next day he was very, very fussy. And especially at night, he wouldn't settle and he kept fussing. And throughout the day we had talked, my husband and I, a couple of times about maybe we should give some formula because I kept saying, I don't think anything's in there. Um, And then they came and they hooked me up to the hospital grade pump and they said, let's try pumping. And that was super uncomfortable. It turns out the pump parts didn't fit me well. So like that's why the pump was so uncomfortable, but still nothing came out. And then they were still telling me like, but when the baby's doing it, stuff is coming out. And I was like, is it though?
Yeah,
Uh,
that seems like not true.
right. Like, I don't think that's what's happening. And then finally we did give him some formula, but they kept telling us like you can only give him a little bit, like 5 milliliters at a time. And he just seemed like he wanted more. And
Right.
we wanted to like listen to their advice because we had never done it, right? They've taken care of hundreds of babies. But we kept feeling like he needs more, he needs more. And finally, this one nurse came in at night and he was fussing and she sat him up in his bassinet and just like held his head. And she took the formula bottle and she just plunged it right in his mouth. And he drank so furiously. And she looked at us and said, you have to feed the baby. And we said, thank God. That is how we have been feeling. And everyone kept telling us to feed him less. Um, and
See,
so
when I was in the, uh-huh.
I didn't produce anything for like the first 5 days. I went home. My husband immediately went and bought formula and we gave him formula for the first couple of days because I didn't have anything. I kept trying and nothing.
So for us in the hospital, they were like, "Do you want to try breastfeeding?" I was like, "Yes." And then I wasn't producing anything, and they kept saying, "No, it'll come in, it'll come in. He has like the brown fat, so he'll be able to like sustain while you're
Hmm.
trying to get your milk in and stuff like that." And the problem is that like they wouldn't give us any formula to supplement. So the whole time he wasn't eating at all. So we went to the first appointment. He actually had like these like like little crystals in his diaper that were like red,
Oh,
and the doctor was like, he's dehydrated, like why haven't
well,
you
that
given
sounds
him anything?
horrifying.
And I'm like, well, the hospital said no formula. And she's like,
Yeah.
what? And I'm like, oh God. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
So we just started with formula, but I mean, I pumped, I did everything I could, and I think I also was part of like the postpartum anxiety. I think took a
Hmm.
big toll on my body where I wasn't able to produce enough, I think, for him. So
Yeah.
I always supplemented with formula. Um, but yeah, and then I also didn't know there was like different like um what is it for the pumping? There's different like sizes. I didn't know that either. I just got whatever came
Yeah.
with whatever insurance covered. And I'm like,
Exactly.
this the second time with my daughter when I did it, this it was better because now I knew there was different sizes. I knew to use like the hospital grade pump, which I didn't do the first time. Um, yeah, and I think I also was under the impression that breastfeeding would be like a whole bunch of milk would just start coming out. Like, here's the
Right.
baby. And no, it didn't. It was like hard work for me, at least like little reward.
Right. Well, and like you learn in school, right? Like with oxytocin,
Yeah.
it's going to have the milk let down. So like oxytocin is going to be released when you're in labor, and that change in the hormones is also going to signal your body to let the milk down, and then you're going to start making milk like soon after you give birth. Uh, Not the case for me. So that's cool. So then you're like, that's why I felt so conflicted. Like, I know theoretically it should be working, but I feel no difference.
Yeah. And then people were saying with the pump, like my friends would tell me, okay, there's like, what is it called? Power pumping. So they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, do
Hmm.
like 10 minutes and 20, and then this, and then do like a 20-minute session, and then do this, and then you can change it for like the pump I had, it was like you can up it by numbers, like how much suction for whoever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like getting overwhelmed. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna be on the pump all the time.
Was
That's
it
what I felt.
hurting your nipples?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was killing me.
Like horrible.
Well, my
Like,
first one was sucking in so much of my like areola and breast tissue that like everything was just red. It was all red all around it. And like, yeah, I didn't feel like it was draining me very well. And like, I tried so hard to breastfeed the first time, but it was so painful. Every time he tried to latch, it hurt. Every time we like tried to feed, it hurt. And I had one side that was like super producing. I had one side that was producing normal amounts, like 4 to 5 ounces per like 10 to 15 minute pumping session, and another side that was producing twice as much as that. And I remember one time the milk letdown was so aggressive. I basically waterboarded my son. Like it shot into the back of his throat and he was like choking. And I was like, okay, this is not working, And like, I remember talking to one of my sisters in law
mhm.
and she said, just make it to the 6 week mark. Like that's when it stops hurting. And I remember like crying, thinking that is over 4 weeks from now. Like
That is
that's
not
so many,
encouraging,
that
sister.
is so many weeks. Like, do you realize how
That's
long
a
that is
lot of days.
when it's this pain? Like, I would cringe, like my whole body would cringe thinking about feeding him. And I felt like it was all I was doing, because they eat so frequently at that age. And then like, because we were so bumbly and like fumbling around trying to breastfeed, it took forever. And then he would like sleep a little. And then it was like, well, I was awake, time to feed him again. And like, I like, even just, I would wear the little like like milk pad, the nipple pad things,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
to
yeah.
catch
Uh-huh.
any runoff or leaking. And like that touching me would hurt, but I had
Oh,
that
it's
was
so
that was better
sensitive. Yeah.
than like my shirt because my shirt would move more than the pad. And like so if I could keep the pad in place, then it wouldn't rub as much. And yeah, and I thought, oh my God, like my nipples are gonna hurt for the rest of my life. Is really how I felt. I was like, and I'm just like, that's it. They're done.
They're t I remember when I went to hospital, someone was like, make sure you take like the nipple butter or whatever. I'm like, what is
Yeah.
that for? Why would I need that? My nips are not gonna get chappy. No, that
Yeah.
that that shit gets chappy. Like you
I got a blood blister on my nipple.
oh my god.
So yeah, file that and things I didn't know were possible.
Dang, I didn't know till now. I was today years
Yeah.
old. Till you
Right. Yeah.
just told
I
me.
f- I had like a mini 5 second freak out, like, oh my God, I have cancer on my nipple. Then I was like, wait, calm down. That's a blood blister. Like you've seen this before, just somewhere else, you know?
You know what's crazy? People like don't have medical experience. Like, what do they think it is? You know what
No,
I mean?
I
Like,
have no idea. Because I also got regular
die.
blisters on my nipples also, which I again did not know was possible.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and because we had such a hard time with like the latching and the letdown and the blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
I exclusively pumped with my first son pretty quickly. After like a week and a half, maybe I switched to exclusively pumping because we just couldn't figure it out. I didn't feel like he was ever actually getting enough to eat when I tried to feed him because we just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And he was checked for ties, lip and tongue ties, and he didn't have any. And so I just like whatever it was about what we had, we were like not compatible to make it work that way. And I actually kind of liked using a bottle of pumped milk because I could see how much he was eating. And
Yeah,
that
I agree with that.
we tried to keep him on a pretty like good routine. They're babies, so it's not exact science, but we wanted to feed him and then have him wake for a little bit and then have him sleep and then feed him and like a little wake time and then sleep, and it was nice to know, okay, like he's eating, 4 ounces, however many times a day or whatever. It was a huge overnight was terrible because we would have to like go heat up a bottle and then like feed him. And then I would have to stay up and pump after he ate so that like I could one, keep up my supply, but two, like if you've ever breastfed, you feel like all this pressure of all the milk in there. You got to get it out of there. And so then I would be awake for like an hour every time he was awake. And then he was only awake. He was only sleeping for like an hour and a half or 2 hours at night. So then I was only sleeping for like 30 minutes to an hour in between.
It's horrible. That time is so horrible. Like when that
Yeah.
happens.
And then like your body's still healing. And then your body's also trying to produce milk. And oh God, it was truly exhausting. And I had, because we wanted to use a schedule, I had this like baby tracker app so I could put in like the number of wet diapers and blah 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 when he fell asleep, when he woke up. So I was like tracking his naps and his wake times and all of that. So I was also tracking like my pump time. I used it as a pump timer. Um, and I remember one time I looked at it and I had been pumping. And it was like the afternoon. And so far for the day, I had been pumping for 6 hours.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, like you're kidding. You're joking.
Oh my, that's I mean, if you think about that, that makes sense why it plays into depression and anxiety and all of that, because you're literally never getting rest almost, like ever.
Yeah.
Your mind can
Yeah.
never
And
get
your
rest.
body, right?
Your
Like you're
body,
not sleeping
yeah.
enough. You're trying to recover from creating and birthing a human, and you're trying to make all this milk. Like, oh my
And
God.
you have to get nutrients in through the nutrients you're losing, right?
Right.
To make the milk. So
It's
like,
also, yeah, it's so hard to stay hydrated. Like you're
Yeah,
so
and like,
thirsty.
but when I wasn't producing that much, but a friend had sent me like these lactation cookies. They are seriously the most delicious cookies I've ever eaten. That was like the only thing I looked forward to was eating these lactation
Nom, nom,
cookies.
nom, nom.
I
Yes,
was
I
like,
will.
it's
I
time
will
for me to
continue
pop.
breastfeeding.
Let me
Nom.
just eat these cookies.
Yes, it's my cookie supplement. Thank
They
you.
was the best cookies ever. But with my daughter, the second she wouldn't latch, and then we found out she actually was tongue-tied.
Mm,
So we had to take her. Um, so my friend had actually taken her son, who was tongue-tied, to someplace, and they had used like a scalpel to cut his. And she's
hmm
like, "Don't do that. There's these pediatric dentists that can do it with like a laser, and it's so much better. And just go do that." So we actually found one, and we took her to go get that done. And they were like, "You're gonna hear her scream. We don't let the parents in the room. You'll hear her scream, but she'll be fine." And I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, yeah, you'll
mm,
be on the outside in the in the lobby." We
mm.
heard. I was like, "Oh my God." And I go in there, like, "She did great. She didn't feel anything." I was like, "I don't think that's true.
First of
I
all,
think
how do you
she
know?
felt it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess she
What
felt
was
it."
the screaming about?
Yeah, clearly she can't tell you. But then after that, it was much better after she got that done. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. So the laser thing helped though. And we had to do like
Yeah.
these tongue exercises for her for like 4 weeks on top of everything else.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
it was
you did formula almost like from the jump with your son, but with
I
your
did.
daughter, you breastfed some?
I breastfed some with her, and I did still supplement with formula. With him, I did mostly, well, I did the same, like, well, okay, so for him, I did pumping and formula, not breastfeeding. And
Mm.
then for her, I did like breastfeeding, pumping, and formula.
And how long did you produce breast milk the second time?
6 weeks
6 weeks.
for both of them. Yeah. 6 weeks for both of them.
Is that when you wanted to stop or was
Yeah. So
yeah.
with my son, I stopped because I actually produced a breast mass. So I
Oof.
had to get a biopsy to make sure it wasn't that nice C word.
Yeah.
And the biopsy came back like negative, but
Oh, thank God.
yeah, but they said it was hormone related. So they said basically I kept pumping, it was just going to keep growing.
Ugh.
So I
So
just
did it
had
go
to
away?
stop. No, I actually had to get it surgically removed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah, that was fun. Um because I had to go under and I'd never been under before. And
Yeah,
I remember the anesthesiologist came around and I was so nervous. I was like, I'm gonna die when I go under. Like, because I'm still like in that anxiety,
right.
whatever kind of thing going on. And so he comes around and he goes, "All right, listen, when you wake up from anesthesia, you're gonna feel like, you had a hangover." So, and I'm like, "Oh, that's great. I have a lot of experience with that." And he literally did not laugh, kept going through the questionnaire. After he left, I looked at my husband. I was like, "I'm gonna fucking die." I was like,
Yeah.
"This guy's gonna
This
kill
guy's
me."
not funny at all. He's got no sense of humor. He
I'm
can't
like,
work on me.
"How could you not laugh at that? You seriously are gonna kill me on the table."
Maybe the only thing I could say is maybe he's heard that joke a lot.
I don't know, but they sent like a review later about him, and I was like, I can't even review this dude. Like, it just,
Yeah.
and I was
He's
like the first case of the morning. It wasn't like he had worked the whole day and he was tired. You know what I mean? I was the
yeah.
first case.
Like he's just a human wet blanket.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
So were
with
you
him, I did, uh-huh.
oh, I was just gonna say, so were you concerned then when it was time to breastfeed again
I
that you might
was.
have another mass
So
or issue?
I developed a second mass actually after that.
Oh wow.
So before I was thinking about getting pregnant a second time, I was like, let me remove everything that's suspicious and then we can get started.
Hmm.
Because I knew they were hormone related, and if I had left one in there, then it would just increase in size again, and
Yeah.
I would create another issue. I mean, I never thought her being tongue tied would be something, but
Yeah.
I ended up getting the surgery again to remove it. So good times.
Yeah. God, this body is wild.
I know. And then like one of them, oh, I don't know. They did the biopsy and like milk was coming out of it.
Oh, weird.
So weird. So she was like, "Yeah, this is a particular kind of mass that actually acts as like a milk duct and actually can produce milk from it." How
Cool.
weird is that?
That's so cool.
So when she did the biopsy, like milk was coming out. I was like, "That's probably my whole day's
You're all
supply."
focus.
save it. You know that little bottle they give
Yeah,
you,
where's
or
the
that tube they
bag?
give you at the hospital? It's like
Yeah.
3 ounces, and I'm like 3 milliliters. Like, put that in there. Put that
Yeah.
shit
Bag it up, girl, to go. Yeah, like can she drink that? Is it cool or is it not good milk or what?
Yeah, exactly. I remember I went for the ultrasound. I was pregnant, and the ultrasound tech was like, "Yeah, this doesn't look normal. You're gonna need a biopsy." And I was like, "I hate you. I wish you weren't the one to tell me that.
Great,
Like,
thanks.
you weren't actually supposed to tell me
Yeah,
anything. I'm glad you're
seriously.
talking to me. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm pregnant, ma'am. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So a lot of exposure was going on during that time.
Yeah. So do you feel like the first experience like helped you have a better experience the second time, or how would you characterize it that way, or like better experience with breastfeeding
I think I had a better experience with breastfeeding the second time because I wasn't as anxious and like as
overall?
anxious. Yeah,
Yeah.
overall. I think I was like more willing to try and more willing to put more effort into it. I think when I had my son, I was just kind of like I was on survival
Mhm.
essentially. So it's like first I'm not producing that much and I feel super anxious. And I got these fun breast masses that just keep getting bigger.
Yeah.
It was just a lot.
So why did you want to stop at 6 weeks?
I think actually my husband was like, it's enough. I don't know. And I'm like, okay. Like I was like, I think you're right. He's like, yeah, you're like killing yourself. And you're like, I don't think he said you're not producing that much, but I think that's what he's alluding to.
Hmm.
He's like, yeah, we're doing formula. It's fine. But I do have to say, when my son was on formula, he did get super constipated.
Oh,
So I don't
interesting.
feel
Was
really
it one,
guilty.
did it have iron in it? One of the ones with iron in it?
And I had iron, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so I went to the doctor and I was like, what do I do now? Like, he's like, it's been like 3 days. And they were like, yeah, just put a little Q-tip up there.
what really? Did it
Yeah,
work?
to stop the constipation. They're like, yeah, just do that.
Did
They're
it
like, oh,
work?
it did actually. And they said also doing rectal temperatures, like when you check if they have a
Uh-huh.
fever, it also, so we would do that sometimes and it would be like, it would just like straight up come out.
Wild.
So fun thing in case anyone
Yeah.
there is constipated.
Just
Check that baby's
another
temperature
and another use for your Q-tips.
and Q-tips. I'm like, my husband was like, I just don't feel right doing this. And I'm like, the doctor said, this is what we're supposed to do.
That's so funny because my
He's
husband,
constipated.
like, I don't know if for people who haven't seen a rectal thermometer, it's so short.
Yeah, it
And
is.
my husband was always like we gotta put a lot of like coconut oil on it and before we put it in, like, because it's gonna be uncomfortable. Like he doesn't want anything stuck in his butt, you know. And I'm like, I really don't think he can even feel it. Like,
I think this is,
you know, like it's barely anything.
I
It
know.
was
I'm
just so funny. He was like so stressed about it. Like,
like, you're like, there's bigger things to worry about.
yeah, like I don't, like I think as long as he's in a comfortable position, when you bloop, he's fine.
Like, I think this has been tested on quite a number of babies. I think it's
No,
fine. I think they're
we'll be
okay.
okay.
Yeah, so that was the only thing was the constipation. I was like, I always feel kind of guilty about that when you have
Yeah,
to. And then all
yeah.
this stuff came out later. Like they're having those formula shortages and stuff. And I don't know, some article came out with like one of the companies, and I was like, oh God, I use that company. Like those,
Oh,
I
the
think that's the
recalls, and yeah.
downside to formula sometimes.
Hmm.
It's like, I don't know, ever 100% know like how it's produced or stored and things like that. And I even researched
Hmm.
like, what European formulas because sometimes their standards are a little more stricter
That's
and
what we got. We got European formula the second time because of the formula shortage. We couldn't buy it here.
right. Yeah, yeah. So we got the European one, and now they have a couple that are FDA approved here, like Bobby and Kendamil.
Mm,
So that's what we supplemented the second time with my daughter was one of those companies.
nice.
Because the other ones I was getting overseas, like I was reading, like, but they're not FDA approved, like they don't put them in like proper, like they don't monitor the storage houses that they're in. So then I'm
No,
like,
interesting.
great. I'm like, what am I gonna do? He's either
Right.
constipated or it's not stored at the right like spot.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
will
I
say
used
the
it, but that was good.
yeah, I will say the one thing that like I wish I had been better at breastfeeding because I was like, well, then you don't have to pack snacks. You don't have to pack bottles. Like you've got food when you need it, if you need it. Like you're not like, dang it, why didn't I bring a second bottle? You know, like
That's a good thing I think about it.
yeah,
I
that's
always
what
think about
like
that.
I wish I had an easier time with it because it would have been super convenient.
Did I had people I knew they were like, I made so much I like saved it and like
Oh, I
stored
had
it
so
for
much.
warming.
We were running out of room in the freezer.
Girl, you're so
I
lucky.
had
That's
so
amazing.
much. It was crazy. I produced more than he could eat every day. So like
Dang,
what's
girl.
crazy is how quickly it goes. Like when I stopped pumping and like weaned myself, I had over 300 ounces in the freezer. And like that sounds like a crazy amount, but we did two at that time he was having 5 bottles a day and we would do 2 breast milk bottles and 3 formula bottles. So all the ones that went to school with him, we would do formula and first thing in the morning and before bed, we would feed him at home breast milk. And that only lasted like another month.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
I
we were
wouldn't think
out of
that.
milk. And it's like, but that sounded like you had so much milk. You know,
Right.
these babies be eating all of it. But
I was hungry. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a lot. Well, what my one of my friends was telling me that they froze the milk and something happens to the breast milk when you freeze it. I don't remember exactly what she told me, but her daughter was allergic to that. So she actually had
well,
to
that's
like,
weird. I've never heard of that. That's wild.
yes, yeah, so she actually had to get rid of all her milk and she couldn't donate it because she was on certain medications. So she literally had to trash all that milk.
You know what? It's funny. I just found, like a couple weeks ago, moving stuff in my freezer. I found 1 bag of frozen milk in there from like a year and a half ago. And you're only supposed to keep it in the freezer for like 6 months. And I was like, you were wasted.
All my hard work, those 6 hours I was working
Yeah.
a day,
It's like one
by
ounce.
midday.
Because one thing I didn't do the first time that was super helpful, like once I figured it out, is I wasn't when I was freezing, like if you've ever used a milk storage bag, it's just a bag and like uh you could stand them upright. And that's how I was putting them in the freezer. So they were like these little odd shaped blocks freezing. And then I figured out just lay them flat and let them freeze flat. And then you can like stack them up like filing cards.
Oh,
And I was like, this is a huge game changer for freezer space.
oh
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I had shelves full of breast milk. And I used to have to like, I'd have to, I would take them out. I had them like all in order so that we wouldn't, like we would use the oldest first, and like,
Right.
and then I would have a set in the fridge to defrost for the next day that like we could use. And that was more the first time because I was only pumping with my first son. But I had to do the same thing. I had to make sure they were out and like to thaw in the fridge, like slowly so that they were still good and all of that.
Did you ever donate any?
No, we used it all because I stopped breastfeeding. Well, I was gonna, I mean, the timing kind of coincided, but I started trying to wean a little bit earlier than I was going to with my second son because I got thrush. And so that was miserable. And
Oh my goodness.
yeah, so I had planned to stop before going back to work, and I took 3 months of maternity leave. So I was going to pump for 3 months or feed/pump for 3 months, and then like my plan was to wean when I went back to work. So like maybe pump a few times at work. But and the second time I used an electric pump pretty much exclusively. The first time,
Yeah.
and so because I had so much problems with it, like fitting and all of that stuff, um, I talked to some people and they said like they did better with a hand pump. So I got the like one you squeeze and pump yourself. I also had
Oh yeah,
a
my
Haka, the
friend said that
silicone
was
one.
good.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would put the Haka, the silicone one on one side, and I would hand pump the other side. Um, and it was still not super comfortable, but it was a lot more comfortable than the electric pump. And so that worked the best for me. But like I remember one time it might have been with my first son, when I was weaning, I would still get like 10 ounces out of the one side. And I'd be like,
Wow.
you need to chill out. Because that would be like, like, especially my first, like when I dropped my overnight pump, like you'd wake up with so much pressure um, from when you first dropped that pumping session that like I would have to pump out so much to like feel any relief of pressure in my chest. It was terrible.
Dang, girl.
I know. And I feel bad. It feels like such a shit thing to like have as a problem. Like, oh, I was making too much milk, and everybody else who like desperately wants to breastfeed and can't is like, yeah, go fuck yourself. You like, if only I had that problem, you know? And which I get, but God, it's really uncomfortable. But
It's
at least I had milk, you know, so
no, I
six
mean
in one,
that's
half a dozen in the other.
no, that's great. I mean, that's great that you produced that amount. I mean, that's awesome. But there's some people produce so much. I was watching like I don't know why these reels would come up when I wasn't producing, but one was making like a whole like milk bath for her kids with it, or like these people like it's crazy. One woman's like, I just had one pump session, and she like pulled out it was like this jug, like jugs I like make iced tea in, and she's like,
Jesus.
like just straight up milk. I was
Yeah.
like,
I think
oh,
if I
like
had
that.
really tried,
I think you could have
I could have
too.
made enough for like three children.
You could have. Yeah, I totally think you could have.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
was eating lactation cookies.
then it definitely would have been a full-time job.
Yeah. And I was eating lactation cookies just for the hell of it because like
Yeah.
nothing
I
was
never ate
happening
any.
from it.
Yeah. I never tried any because I'm gluten free, so I can't eat a lot of that
Oh,
kind of stuff. But I did like oats are supposed to be good, so I was like eating some oats and stuff. Like I was eating a few things that were supposed to be good for milk production, but like not I wasn't going crazy with it. And it was
eating girl, you were just like
the
you're
production
like
was like
no lactation stuff for me. It just happened.
yeah. I was kind of interested the second time to see if my right side would still be my super producer. And it was like, boom, we're back online. We're gonna do twice as much as the left side.
I was waiting.
Fuck the left side. I'm way better than the left side.
The left side's like, I've been trying.
Yeah. It's like, let's go, let's go. The left side's like, we're doing great. We're pumping out 5 ounces. And then they look over and they're like, are you kidding me?
The right's like 20.
Yeah.
He's like,
Easy.
I'm benching 20.
Easy. It was like we did the
It's
we
like
had like
guys
a
at the
little
gym with like lifting
yeah.
weights.
I was just thinking we had this little like physical fitness test when I was in grade school and we had these two twins in my class that were gymnasts and they would
Yeah.
like everybody else is like doing the little flexed arm hang like you know for 20 seconds and they're up there doing like 40 pull-ups and it's like oh, okay.
I just imagine when you're talking about your right side versus your left side, like the guys at the gym that are lifting, like drop the weights and like, "Ah!" I feel like that's
Yeah.
how the right side would be for you.
Yeah,
And the left
exactly.
side, like
High-fiving
just starting
themselves all
out
the
with
way.
dumbbells.
Right. Like you won. Yeah, that was me.
No,
Yeah.
that's cool though. That's great. That's
I mean,
good.
I guess I didn't enjoy it, but
I enjoy the cookies. I'm gonna tell you.
yeah, this
One
is the
experience for
cookies.
me was the cookies.
I'm here for the cookies.
I literally like bought myself more cookies. I was
Yeah,
like, gotta love these cookies.
yeah,
They're
that's
good, yeah.
hysterical.
My
But
friends try to help, but yeah.
yeah, I mean, all in all, did you enjoy breastfeeding?
Uh, no, nope.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah, it's a no for me.
Yeah, I was
Like I
like,
wanted to be open to having a more pleasant breastfeeding journey, and like I will say, the second time was better. Like I had made some progress in like in actually being able to directly feed
yeah,
my second one, but like yeah, it was unpleasant. And I gotta tell you, I was worried about mastitis so much, and thrush
just
was
popped up.
terrible. Was awful. It was awful. It would like
Wait, was
it.
that something you were worried about at all, or you just found out about it
No, like
recently?
I knew it was a thing that could happen, but I
Yeah,
was like I was more concerned that mastitis would happen, that like something would get clogged or like I'd sleep
that's
weird and
yeah.
like put too much pressure on my breast and then like I would get like, you know, some stagnation and infection or something. But like here comes yeast, like here to ruin your day.
The thrush is like, forgot about me.
Yeah. And then you feel bad too because then like, you know, when you your baby eats, you see like a little bit of white from the milk on their tongue and you're like, oh, okay. But when they get threshed, they get a white coating of yeast on their like tongue and their throat. And then so like when it doesn't go away and you're like looking in his mouth, you're like, that you still have milk in your mouth, buddy? And then you're like, no, no. And then your nipples start feeling like they're on fire and you feel like hot acid moving through your breast every time he's like sucking and the milk is coming out. And then you're like, no, that can't be good. And then you go to the doctor and they go, ah, that's thrush. And you go, cool, cool, cool,
The
cool,
doctor
cool.
makes that face. You're like,
Yeah,
okay.
I am doing so good.
I'm gonna get my copay's worth today.
Yeah, right. I was like, but yeah, and then I felt bad, like, oh my God, how'd I let him get thrush? And then like he's got this, infection in his mouth and his throat, and like how long has it really been in there? And could I have done anything to not have it,
That's all
So
mom guilt, right? Anything
yeah,
happens if we feel that way,
yeah,
always. We
yeah.
always feel like there's something we could do. Um, but
But yeah, all in all, I get breastfeeding like a 0 out of 10 stars, but that was for me.
I'm gonna have to concur 0 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
But um formula is more of like you just have to figure out what works for your baby and what kind of they can get constipated, they can have diarrhea, they can like get gassy. It's like a whole thing. Fortunately the first one we had for our son worked okay, just a little constipated, but
Yeah.
that was
Yeah, we didn't have any, our kids didn't have any allergies or reactions to the formula, the first one that we chose. So it was good. It was good for us.
yeah. But all in all, I think this is a great topic that we kind of, went through today. I think it's
Yeah.
great. Something that everybody knows a little bit about, but no one really knows everything about.
Yeah.
Try to
And
prepare ourselves, but
it's interesting the breadth of experience that people can have with it too.
And whether it's formula or breastfeeding, both have its own challenges, and whether you're doing either or, you're doing a good job.
Amen, sister.
Thank you for listening to Postpartum Unfiltered.
If you enjoyed the show, please like, share, comment, or leave a review.
You can follow us on Instagram at postpartum.unfiltered.
If you feel called to share your postpartum experience, please contact us on Instagram or at drjilliancampbell.com.